You know the Magna culture, right? Nobody works for me. You people work with me. I'm working for you. The history of mankind has always been dominated by the golden rule. Here's the gold makes the rule. But I don't want to be dominated by anyone. If I feel that strong, I should not be able to dominate somebody either.
Welcome to The Road to Economic Freedom. I'm joined here with perhaps Canada's most successful entrepreneur, Frank Stronach, the founder of Magna International, employing over 180,000 people worldwide with 440 factories in 34 different countries. Frank Stronach is on his boldest and most important initiative yet, the Canadian Economic Charter of Rights. Today, we're going to be discussing the role that municipalities play in bringing forward an economic charter of rights in Canada. Thank you, Frank Stronach, for joining us.
It's great to be with you, Iwona.
Thank you. So, Frank, your newest approach with the Economic Charter is bringing municipalities on, having them endorse the Charter. What role do municipalities, or do you see municipalities playing in bringing forward a national economic policy?
Well, municipalities or cities are usually burdened with the problems, right? If the economy doesn't work, the economy basically is created or could be stimulated by the federal government, right? Whatever decision they make, it would say it would improve the economy or it would deteriorate, right? But in the final analysis, the municipalities, the city, have very little say, but they are faced with call it soup kitchens, food lines, people homelessness. They're faced with the problems. So it's logically when you got the problems that you should talk about it, how to overcome that, right? So that's the whole idea, that we would like to interface with the municipalities, with the cities, with the mayors, with the councillors. What do we have to do to kind of try to improve the situation, right? Because I really, the economy doesn't work, right? And it's gonna be very rough, very tough out there. But there's always things you can do to maybe make it less severe. That's the whole, to create a kind of a talking station to that we can talk what should we do, right? So that's the idea why we like to bring forward the economic charter to the municipalities.
Does the idea of bringing municipalities into this conversation about a national economic charter allow the federal government to have these conversations with municipalities?
Well, if all the municipality or a great amount of municipalities would say economic charters of rights are very important, then the politicians would listen in Ottawa, right? Because if a politician brings forward an economic charter of rights, then it doesn't work, because all the other parties say that's no good. You can always, criticize. You can criticize the best thing and never get it done, right? So I think it's very important that the economic charter of rights will be brought forward basically by small business, right?
By small businesses. And will municipalities be working closely together with the small businesses to put pressure on the national government to fortify economic charter of rights?
Well, the municipalities should be helpful, right? When things get and maybe ease off on some of the rules, right? We overruled. We got too many regulations, right? And that's why the economy is coming to a standstill, right? So we got to talk about this. How can we get the economy going?
Of the 7 principles, are there any principles that the municipalities have control over that they can already start working towards implementing on a local level?
Yes, there's quite a, basically, what it boils down to, they could, if somebody applies for a permit to build a factory, right? They could make it so difficult that the factory doesn't get approved, or it would take a few years.
Do you find that municipalities are making it more challenging for small businesses to flourish and grow?
Well, it's municipalities have a great bearing, right? Let me give you an example. About 65 years ago, when I built my first company, right, I didn't need anything. I rented a small little building. I put a sign up. I'm a tool and die maker by trade. I put a sign up, tool and die making, open for business. I didn't need anything, right? But now, for instance, now I'm waiting for 3 years now to get a permit for a farmer's market. A most logical thing here, because I invested in farms and want to grow organic foods and offer them in a farmer's market. And it's amazing how many rules and regulations are that there's just hundreds of them.
And who makes the decision to create more and more regulations that are stifling these small businesses?
Well, I think right now you have an environment where the regulators are regulated by the regulators. Okay, so can anybody figure that out? No. But that's what it is, right? The regulators are regulated by the regulators, right? So it is, we gotta go back. Canada was such a great country 50, 60, 70 years ago. I remember when I built my the first business I had was in a rented building. But about 60 years ago, I built my first new building, right, in the city of Richmond Hill, right? And I still remember it, right? I came to the city hall with a bunch of blueprints. And the officials looked at those are qualified engineers, which done the blueprints, wind load, snow load, sewage, everything is fine. We're so happy that you built a factory in Richmond Hill, and there's your permit. Okay. So that's the way it was in those days, right?
And now it's very different.
So we should go back and try. We overdone it, right? We want to have so many regulations now, which is look. In the last factory I built, I had steel columns embedded in concrete, and I had to fireproof the steel columns, with some chemicals, right? With some foam chemicals, and it's in the long run. I mean, how crazy that can be, right? Because it's not the greatest thing for employees to inhale for the foam, the fumes, etc., right? And how can you ignite a steel column sitting in a piece of concrete, right? But we have gone overboard with regulations.
Do you think that we can feasibly begin to cut back on the regulations? It's very difficult to take something back after it's already been implemented.
Well, it is because it's a pretty secure income, right? Okay, because it seems they never get laid off, right? It's and everybody has maybe a relation and so on, and so So a lot of people are hired unnecessarily, right? Because we got way too many regulations, right? And I'm always using that example, right? 50 years ago, when the first computers came on the market, the slogan was, if you got one of those computers, you could eliminate a total office floor. And now when I look around, I see 20 times more office buildings, right? Okay, what do they do in there? They don't make any products in there, so that's the dilemma.
So what happens if we do begin to reduce the bureaucracy? We're taking jobs away from people that have job security, as you said.
Well, it's I'd like to whatever when you make changes in society, they should be civilized, because basically, in a civilized country, every citizen's got the right to find a job, whatever the openings are, right? And but the politicians create more and more openings in conjunction with the bureaucrats. The bureaucrats say we gotta regulate this, we gotta regulate that, we gotta look after this. This is great. So it goes on and on and on. But so I compared, right? People love their kids, right? Okay, and people then cannot. I think they're smart enough to say, look, we cannot lock them up in a rubberized room, so they're never gonna get hurt, right? You gotta let them out and and let them play with other kids. Let them play like they climb maybe trees. They maybe do. You're gonna. If you live near the ocean, don't go in the ocean where there's sharks, or or alligators, or whatever. Or you tell them, don't climb up on that high tree, right? So yes, you give advice, but in the final analysis, you cannot. You got to let kids be a kid, and it's unfortunate that sometimes that innocent kids get hurt, and that's the mystery, in life. How is it possible sometimes kids or people get hurt, innocent, right? And how come is their God, right? So, but anyway, there's a lot of mysteries in life which we don't quite understand. But you gotta give people the freedom.
And do you think municipalities have the control to start reducing their bureaucracies, to start unleashing small businesses, as you say?
Well, it's they got to realize. Basically, I try to tell the regulators, look, you got kids. Don't you love them? And so we got there's no future, right? When I think we're not far off having more regulators than people working, right? That's the dilemma, right? So I'm trying to tell the regulators, look, you got kids. We say we need a very civilized transition to create so that's not hardship on people. So basically I'm saying, look, we're not, the economic charter doesn't say that we fire all the bureaucrats or a great amount. No, we just say, look, we have a hiring freeze, right? Till we reach to get a normal kind of size for regulators towards society. That's what this thing is all about, right? We gotta be very civil. We gotta be very. We gotta realize, that if we gotta reduce, but not to the extent that we fire people, right? We just said, look, we have a hiring freeze. Still, there's the right ratio of kind of regulators to society.
How long do you think that would take to bring bureaucracy down to the level that it once was when you opened your first factory?
It would take the minimum maybe 5 years, right? Or maybe even 10 years. But you got to start someplace. Right now, when we take a look, right, society's going backwards. Right, the living standards only maybe about half, 50% what they were 50, 60 years ago. So we got to ask ourselves, how come our living standards are going down to such extent? But basically, is what do any regulators, right? And too much government's interference with business, right? Okay, we gotta, especially we gotta spread small business free, right? Small business I classify 300 employees or less. We should set them free, right? They are tied up in red tape. It's absolutely crazy, right? And so they are the most to suffer, right? But small business could get us out of that dilemma, right? Because small business has always been the backbone. So I'm just trying to build a small business. Think about it. If government gets out of the small business, how great that would be.
What do you think our country could expect if we did unchain small business and created the same environment that you once had growing your business?
Well, basically, what would have to be done there is the key is to free small business, take the chains, take the red tape off. Where I'm saying government have no business to be in small business, right?
Government has no business to be in small business.
And yes, there are still two rules: workplace safety, and you cannot dump poison chemicals in your backyard. But otherwise, there should be no regulators, right? Because you buy machinery which is safe, to the latest standards. And there's still laws, right? If you be grossly negligent, then you have laws, right? Like on anything, if we grossly negligent or do something bad, right? We have laws. So we gotta set small business free. One would be small business shouldn't pay any business tax. Small business wants to grow. That means they can only grow if they hire more employees. So the employees will pay a wage tax, right, an income tax. And if an owner of a small business takes monies out, if he takes out more monies, he pays more taxes. If he takes out less, he pays less taxes, right? But they want to grow. Why? I mean, if we would set small business free, there'd be a huge economic boom.
What would that mean for the average Canadian if we unleash small business? If you're not a small business owner, why should you advocate for small business?
Well, what we would start to make products, right? Because we got to look at the country, a country which imports more and more and exports less and less, then the living standards will deteriorate. And if we export only raw materials, that's not the right thing either, right? Yes, we can export some raw material, but most of the raw material, we should be able to make products out of them, right? So, but when we kind of take a look, it's very easily to figure out when there's a problem in a country. A country which imports more and more and exports less and less will have severe problems where the living standards go back. And we have exactly that situation in Canada. When you take a look now, if there's a new building going up, it's not a factory where we make things. It's a warehouse. For the last 30, 40 years, we just built warehouses, right? Basically, we become a nation of warehouse operators, and that doesn't work. That doesn't create a lot of jobs, right? We're warehousing products which we import, right? That's the dilemma.
How do we compete? How do small Canadian businesses compete with the low price of imports?
Well, we Magna, we proved that we competed with low-price countries. We have what we got to do is you gotta get workers involved. If you get workers involved, you gotta set aside in a very tangible way that a portion of the profits will go to the workers. Okay. And there's an amazing, when I did that, and when I created the profit sharing at Magna, our profits went up 40% the first year, 100% the second year, and 200% the third year. It's an amazing energy release when you get workers involved. Now, I said earlier on, small business is 300 employees or less. So they don't need government officials or anybody to tell them how to run their business. They could run what we call the free enterprise, right? Free enterprise, free enterprise basically is the foundation for a free society. If there's no free enterprise, you cannot have a free society. So let the small business, if you want to grow as an owner, you gotta interface with your workers. You gotta, the ones which work harder and smarter, you gotta pay them more. You could pay them more in form of a bonus. In case you could do some profit sharing, you could do
Doesn't that affect the bottom line of the business for the business owner if you're paying higher wages, which that's somewhere we can't compete with imports?
It was just, the reverse would take place. If you get employees involved in a tangible way, it's an amazing how their thinking changes. They're in the first line. They see how we could make better products.
So
right?
Innovation goes up.
Innovation and let the workers know. You get in a tangible way, you get a portion of the profits, right? But we got to be careful, right? We have over 300 employees. Then the law would say you gotta share profits with the workers. Below, we don't want to have the government giving. Let free enterprise, let small enterprise be free. Let them decide how do they pay their workers. Okay, because if they don't pay the good workers, they will never be able to grow a business, right? When I was very small, I showed the workers my bank book and said, this is what I got in. We have such and such contracts. If you do XXX, I'll give you a bonus, right? Okay, so we got to do that. So we don't, when you be a small company, you don't need regulators. Get the regulators out. That's the first thing which has to be done. The second thing is no business tax for small businesses. And we have a tax system now which is so convoluted. It serves, I think, special interest groups which pay very little tax money, right? So there's thousands of tax lawyers, right? Which they're looking for loopholes, right? Can we create something, right? For that the rich companies don't pay any taxes. That's the dilemma. So we gotta have, right? One is governments must have balanced budgets.
Is there any way that municipal governments can help with balancing the federal budget? Do they have a role in this?
No, they cannot. That's a federal thing here. But they could ease off because the regulators are basically in the municipalities. They could ease off. And town council with the mayor could decide, let's take that regulation off till the economy recovers. Right? There's many ways which it does not do any. It does not create a problem for the municipality, but it would be very helpful for small business, right? So I think for those reasons, it's so important that small business can interface with the municipalities, but most of all that the people which could give advice on the economic charter.
Do you see municipalities being a vehicle that we can use to put pressure on the national government to bring an economic charter in?
Yes, that's over the years, right? Especially the United States and Canada, over the years, municipalities had a lot of freedom, right? Some municipalities grew because they offered so much freedom. And some municipalities didn't grow because there was very little freedom, right? That's the way cities grew, right? There was more freedom, right? Okay. And some places stayed small places, right?
So they can create an environment locally.
They can create an environment where they got to realize small business is the backbone. Without small business, nothing works.
And do you see small business being a greater lobbying group for the economic charter, or municipalities, or you think they need to work together?
This is what I like to see, that small business bands together. I try to tell you, if you band together, you got a huge lobbying group. If the politicians would listen, if you make recommendations, it's so important that small business basically holds the future of Canada in their hands, right? By banding together, by hiring people now if they don't pay a business tax, and if municipalities make it easier for small business to do things faster and at a lower cost.
And do you think small business can help cushion this upcoming recession, depression, by incorporating or pushing for the economic charter?
That would be the whole idea, that municipalities could cushion, call it if there's a great recession or where the economy is extremely bad. They can do a lot of things, and that's why it's so important that the municipalities will listen to delegations, or we call them lead supervisors, which understand the economy better, right? To work together, right? Because really, what it boils down to, the economic charter of rights will benefit, will improve the living standards for Canadians, right? And if town councillors or mayors are not listening to them, yes, that means they're not really helping the working class, right, to improve their problems, right? So I think it's very, they got to, and I think a mayor or town councillors got to know, because the public would know if they don't endorse the economic charter. The economic charter, doesn't matter how often you read it and question things, it's a solid document to improve the living standard of Canadians. But we are not preaching to take away from the rich. We are preaching workers, we must let them participate in making the economic pie. And if the workers participate, everybody would get a bigger slice, even the rich and the workers. We could eliminate poverty. So it's, again, over and over, I like to point out to the mayors and town councils, you got to listen to economic charters, to ambassadors of the economic charter, to listen what that would mean, okay? Because at this point, all politicians agree, and that includes the municipal politicians, they all agree, if the economy doesn't work, nothing else will work. They've done that for 50 years now, and there's nothing coming out of it. We are not talking what drives the economy. We're not talking on what the economy is. The economy is driven by three forces: smart managers, hardworking employees, and investors. The message I want to get across loud and clear to the politicians in Ottawa and to the municipal politicians: without workers, we can't make a profit. So that's the message they gotta hear.
Is that the most important aspect of the economic charter, is bringing the working class into this profit sharing model?
That's very well, to make things smarter, to make things better, to make things better and cheaper. That's what the economy is all about. But most of all, the economic charter guarantees that workers, especially when the companies get bigger, that they have a more right to get some profit. Okay. So the economic charter will eliminate poverty, and is an organization where we could increase the living standards, because we gotta get back to the way things were done 50, 60 years ago.
What can the average Canadian do now to start pushing this? Do we go out and talk to small businesses? Do we interface with the municipalities, our council members, the mayors?
you're coming up with such good questions. I'm always surprised. You're doing great. So it's grassroots, right? So basically, the economic charter, like I presented, got 7 principles. They're very easily understood, right? They should be promoted in any municipalities. They should be promoted. The town council and the mayor. They should let their employees and the citizens of their city know, like, what the economic charter is. That it's really helpful for the working class. Okay.
So together with the municipalities, with small businesses, Canadians can nationally band together.
Because it's grassroots, right? I mean, Canadian workers should know, look, when a company is larger, they get it automatically, you know, and when the companies are smaller, because small business doesn't pay a business tax, they could afford to pay higher wages or give bonuses or profit sharing or equity participation. Doesn't matter how you're going to slice it, how you're going to look at the economic charter. It's unavoidable. It will come, because you cannot have democracy without economic democracy. That's the essence.
Economic democracy. Thank you so much, Frank Stronach. Thank you for bringing forward the 7 principles of the Canadian Economic Charter. If you're interested in learning more, please go to economiccharter.ca. Join up as a member. We'll interface with you directly to talk about how we can push this forward, how we can ensure that small businesses band together to create a fertile ground for them to succeed in this country, and how municipalities can play an integral role to bringing forward an economic charter of rights. Again, thank you so much for your insights, Frank.
It's great with you. You're improving all the time. You're getting it seems like you're becoming an economic expert.
Well, I'm learning from the best.
I think a lot of people will you could be a consultant of a lot of industry. Yeah. Okay, great. Let's do it again soon and bring ideas forward.
Thank you. Thank you.